All right, welcome everybody to episode 63 of the RF Generation Collectorcast, or the Neo Geo cast, as we're going to call this one, because it's time to be bigger, badder, and better. This is the show to end all shows.
We are top
all the
dogs
mega shocks.
today.
That's right. It's like 3,000 mega shock that we're doing it all in one show. But we've wanted to do this one for a while. I think you've heard us talk about it. We're excited to talk about some Neo Geos of all kinds. But as usual, we're going to start off by saying hello to everybody and see what's new. So, Bill, I obviously those at home can't see. We have the show doc that we go from, but I'm going to pick on Bill first simply because the first thing he has on his list. I'm hoping that's not personal, Bill.
No, it's not. It's not me. And I was just taking notes of like what's been going on in my life, like what can I just chat about, because you know me, I get going and then I forget where I started. So, but yeah, the first thing I have on my little updates here is just losing teeth. So it's not me losing teeth. My
Thank
oldest lost his first tooth.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. It's for parents. You have like all these firsts, right? Like the first steps and the first words. So like we've never had a kid lose a tooth. So like, I feel like it's been months. Like it's been kind of like every day you're like, it can't get any looser than that and not fall out. And then like another day comes and it is looser and hasn't fallen out. So. Callahan pulled the tooth out last night after I brushed his teeth, and he was thrilled. Like I thought it was going to be put off by the sight of blood, but we just we dabbed it away and he was fine. Took a bunch of pictures, and he was like, "So is the tooth fairy going to come?" I was like, "Yeah, after you go to sleep." And he ran to his bedroom and he like got under the covers and he like closed his eyes. We're like, "Do you want to read a story or anything?" He's like, "No, I have to go to sleep so the tooth fairy can come." So it was just a fun, just one of those, one of those parent moments where like you have one of those firsts. So it was worth mentioning, even though it's not a video game or Neo Geo adjacent.
Well, it was fun. He lost a tooth the other day,
fairy's
so I understand.
buy a Neo Geo, so.
Exactly. So it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm. It all comes back.
When we were kids, it was like a couple bucks, like $1 or something for a tooth fairy. So it's inflation-wise, you gave him what, 500?
Oh yeah, it's pesos. So yeah, it's exactly. So like, and he asked too. Like, and my mom, she loves pulling teeth. She always has. Like when we were kids, there's video.
It's a weird thing to love.
Yeah, right. Like but you know how like I don't know if your wives are like this, but like my wife is like a picker. Like anything, like oh, can I get that? Can I pinch that?
No.
Do you have a splinter? Can I pull that out? Like yeah, she wants to be like the surgeon. And that's just always how she's been. My mom always loved pulling teeth. So like if you had a loose tooth, we have home video of me saying of like my dad, you're trying to like get the kids to say something cute. So he's like, "Oh, like tell me about today what happened." And I was like, "Oh, like here's my loose tooth." And then I do an impression of my mom on this home video. I'm like, "Yeah, Mom said I'll give you $1 if you let me pull your tooth out." And like we showed my kids this old video, and so like they do the voice too with like doing their impression of me. But yeah, like my mom was always, if we had a loose tooth, she was like, "Can I pull it out?"
So she would pay you to pull it out and then tooth fairy you after too. So you got paid.
Exactly, exactly. We double dipped on our tooth extraction.
That's creepy.
So but yeah, I remember getting like couple of quarters, like maybe like $1, $2, like tops. I don't really remember, but so we figure, we've given the kids have done chores here and there, and like we'll give them a reward, and they have a bank. They know how much money they have. So we figure, well, it can't be just like $1. Like they probably won't care about $1. So it's like let's have it be $5, because you also have to worry about setting precedent. Like there's a lot of teeth in that head. So
and a lot of kids with teeth.
Yeah, right. They got a couple more coming up behind him. So so we did $5, and Sarah, she loves doing little crafty things. So she made on her computer like a little tooth fairy receipt, and like sprinkled like glitter on it. So wrapped it up in a little string, put under his pillow. So he woke up, he ran into bed this morning. He's like, "Oh, Dad, the tooth fairy gave me $5." So he opened it up, and the receipt, it's like a tooth fairy, received 1 tooth, price $5 for first tooth. So like now we can like fall back and maybe do $1 for the rest of them. And it was like there was like feedback. So it was like quality of brushing satisfactory, quality of flossing needs improvement. So we're like, oh buddy, Tooth Fairy says we gotta floss more. So
Yeah, if you
but
give
yeah.
a buck next time and write flossing sucked, then do $5 floss the time after that.
Exactly. So yeah, so that was fun, and it's crazy. Like, it looks like a different kid. I mean, it'll really look like a different kid when like the adult teeth start coming into that tiny little head. But yeah, with just talking to him now with like the hole in his mouth, it's just a fun time. So that was the first thing on my list there. I just have a couple other little things noted here. I have Lego mentioned here. I haven't picked up anything. Well, actually, I had picked something up before. I just hadn't put it together yet. So one of them is the Lego Treehouse that we threw together. That was a lot of fun. And every year they put out a different Winter Village theme build. This year it's the Winter Village Fire Station. So we put that together at my parents' house on Thanksgiving. So that was fun. The Coliseum has been released, so that's a cool looking set. I'm not personally interested. It's too big. I don't have anywhere to display it. I think I might have mentioned before, like, until they come out with like a Russell Crowe Lego minifigure, fighting Joaquin Phoenix, I probably wouldn't have any interest in anything like that. But besides that, the games that have been going on in the house, the boys are still rocking Game Pass games. They love Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare and Garden Warfare 2. They have discovered that Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville is on Game Pass. I actually haven't looked this up. I don't know if this is newer or older than Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, but they love it. And just, exploring around, shooting stuff, upgrading guys, like getting legendary skins, like things that I never would have imagined caring about when I was a kid, like they care about deeply. So it's I don't know much about Fortnite, but I know that like unlockables and skins and cosmetics like are a big part of that. Not just like the fun things that people like unlocking, but also like status symbols when you look at other players who are like, oh, like they've got that skin. And I'm sure that extends to many, many games. Like I know Counter-Strike is big with skins, and probably like League of Legends. Yeah, Overwatch. But yeah. So I'm not really familiar. Like Destiny has, they don't call them skins. They call them for weapons.
They have the real life skins when you get the T-shirt for doing the
exactly. Yeah, you skin yourself. So they call them for weapons. They call them ornaments, and for I think they mainly call them ornaments. And there might be another. I don't really pay attention to that stuff because I don't care. But yeah, so it's interesting seeing them care about that stuff. And my younger son is still, or middle son rather, is still super into Breath of the Wild. They have found my save file, so they love just loading it up with like a ton of hearts and a ton of equipment, and just experimenting with like making potions and climbing with the climber's gear on, and they just love stats. So like they'll kill like, Dad, I killed a guardian. It was a major test of strength. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, because when you go down, it'll say like a modest, like
moderate test of strength.
Moderate test of strength, yeah. So there's, Dad, you gotta help me find the major test of strength. So I found one for him, and he was like struggling with it for a while, and like he was like, you gotta help me. How do I do this? And I'm like, oh well, I think there's like a deflect, like you can like parry, like if you time it the right way. So I like loaded up a YouTube video and showed him. So now like he's like, he'll just go up to like a guardian and just practice, just boom. Like, oh, I got him with one hit. I'm like, good for you, man. That's a skill that'll go not just other places in this game, but other games as well.
You can be
Dark Souls. Be a Souls boy. Yeah, he's gonna be a Souls boy. So yeah. So but it's so funny, and it's because they know. Like they've kind of learned all the lore and like what things are called, because it used to be like, oh, those flying things in the sky, but now they know they're divine beasts, and they know that they're aiming at Hyrule Castle and Ganon, so they want me to beat the game for them. I'm like, no, you guys got to get good enough to beat it. So Cameron brings the Switch to me like 10 times today. He's like, Daddy, I want you to beat Calamity Gammon. He's like, what? He's like, I want you to beat Calamity Gammon. It's like, oh, Calamity Ganon. It's like, yes, Calamity Gammon. So I was like, I want you. So I like showed him a little bit. Like I gave him like the first step. It was like this is how you would attack him. And he was like, oh, and then he like grabs it and takes it back. So yeah, we actually had a good long while. We weren't planning on playing games for, hours today, but one of my wife's errands went unexpectedly long. Changing tires on the car took a while just for, whatever reasons that takes. So I ended up, Caden was napping for most of the time, but then, the boys were just playing Plants vs. Zombies. I snuck downstairs for a little Destiny, which I've been playing now that I've, carved out some time, budgeted some time for it, made it through the campaign, and then like most Destiny games or expansions, once the campaign is over, you have like all the post-campaign stuff, so like a lot of other quest lines open up, a lot of different gameplay loops open up. So I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. Like the campaign itself wasn't bad. It was just like I kind of got like halfway through it and I was like, all right, like it's a campaign, it's not, blowing the doors off or anything. But like now that the campaign's over and I get the story and now it's kind of like opening the world up, it's really starting to kind of show me like what it's all about. So had some fun with that the last few days. And I convinced my kids to add another couple of games to the queue. We threw Jedi Fallen Order onto the download queue, which very recently added to Game Pass. I'll probably play it when it gets added to Ultimate sometime in December, which I believe Doom Eternal is also getting added to PC sometime in December. So hopefully that does. Yeah, it's already on console. And they said they were trying for like a simultaneous PC console release. They just couldn't make it work. So, but yeah, Doom Eternal and Jedi Fallen Order are my 2 Game Pass picks for December. Hopefully they don't interfere too much with Cyberpunk, because once Cyberpunk hits, I assume that's going to be what's going to be playing if I'm in front of the machine. So yeah, that's kind of most of my updates. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Cool. Well, we'd sit here and it just hit me while you were talking. You guys just said something. I didn't realize my camera wasn't on. We were sitting here talking forever, and
for a while.
Like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, and then I just figured, like, okay, because my camera has been working the last few times, so I figured, like maybe he just doesn't have the camera on. But you came to life like halfway through talking there, and then I felt so much better. I was like, there he is.
Well, I wonder because I talk with my hands sometimes, and like they see in the Wii. No.
Yep.
They're like, oh no, they're not.
I like the background. Good choice.
So, with the stuff that goes on with the kids, with the teeth and everything, like I said, Eden just lost a tooth the other day as well. I mean, not her first tooth, but it's funny because we were talking about tooth fairies, and I don't know why, but she's already lost a couple teeth. She wanted to save them up. Like, she didn't want to give them to the tooth fairy right away. She's like, I want to save them. So she's like, put them somewhere, and then she lost them. So with this one, she's like, oh, Dad, I lost my teeth, and I can't, And I said, well, look, you put this one in the thing, and, we'll see what happens there. So, of course, we had to put, like, extra money in there. Like, oh, tooth fairy found all your teeth. Collected them early.
You're not worried she's going to
it.
find them now after you paid it? Maybe she's scamming you. Maybe she had them the whole time.
Maybe, but talking about teeth, that's what reminded me of that. I was like,
that's too funny.
First, Bobby was like, I'm just going to put the regular money in for the tooth. And I'm like, no, you can't. You got to cover all the teeth.
You guys ever watch Channel Zero?
I don't even know what that is.
So Channel Zero is a anthology series on, I can't remember which network, but if you Google it, you'll find out which network it's on. But it's basically, so season 1 was Candle Cove, which is this like a creepypasta story that's been around for a while on the internet. And so basically, so like being an anthology series, for those who don't know, one season is like one entire story arc, and then like the next season of Channel Zero, completely different characters, completely different story arc, kind of the way Fargo is. If you ever watch the Fargo TV series, like each season is like a self-contained story. So in the first season of Channel Zero, this like creepypasta show, the monster, like I wouldn't say main antagonist, but like the monster of the show is made of teeth. So I can't unsee it. Like whenever I think like, there's like loose teeth, and then like you pull a tooth out. So like basically this monster would like come crawling out of like the woods and stuff, and like take the tooth and like add it to itself. But yeah, if you want to have a nightmare tonight, just Google Channel Zero, and you'll see the tooth monster. But
you mentioned your kids are getting into Teen Titans Go before the call too. There's a great Tooth Fairy episode of Teen Titans Go where the Tooth Fairy is just this real disturbing creep who enjoys eating the teeth that he collects.
Oh,
you should watch that with the kids. It is very, very funny.
Yeah, so yeah, me and Kelsey, because Kelsey has purchased many graphic novel books lately, mostly Batman, but I think he mentioned there's like a couple other stragglers in there. But yeah, we were talking comics and mainly Batman before starting up, and I was kind of getting recommendations on, how do you get a good. I've been asking a while for Azrael, so we finally found a really interesting Azrael book, and some Ra's al Ghul stuff in there. And but yeah, it's you mentioned Teen Titans, and it reminded me that Callahan had just recently he mentioned something, and I was like, "What's that from?" And he's like, "Oh, it's from Teen Titans." So I guess he's seen it on TV or like gotten the book out of the library or something. So, but yeah, the fact that like now that I know he's into it, I'm like, okay, like this opens up like a whole new avenue of stuff that we can explore together. So that should be fun. And we're going to start the Batman animated series. I showed them like the first episode. Cat in the Claw, and I was like, "You want to watch more?" And they were like, "Yeah." So
that's not the first episode.
Ah,
first episode's on Leather Wings with Man Bat.
Batman animated.
That's in the first season for sure, and it's an early one. But
then maybe it was just the way they were numbered in the download that I got.
Because I've been rewatching that recently, actually from start.
Media, TV.
Whatever you say, Puddin'.
Nice pull.
Yeah, so yeah, it's in the, what do you call it? In the like the folder I've got them in, season 1, episode 1 shows up as Cat in the Claw. So if that's out of order, then I will defer to your Batman knowledge.
Yeah, because I had the DVDs forever, and it's always been on Leather Wings, and then I just recently upgraded to Blu-ray and been watching the whole series, and it's the same thing. So I think that's the airing order. It does feel like a weird first episode though, because it's like just right in the middle of everything.
Yeah, maybe they just had a different order on the Canadian broadcast. But yeah, you're right. The wiki lists on Leather Wings as the first. So yeah, just might be just something weird about the file that I got. So, but yeah, on Leather Wings is number 1.
Blame whoever did put that torrent together. It's
I know.
Bad news. It's just teach you not to go in the Pirate Bay. They mix up the Batman order.
they must. But I got my.
Kid's gonna be so confused growing up.
I got my NordVPN, so no one's gonna know.
Hey, you can't talk about that until they sponsor. It's okay.
I know, right? Speaking of, we'll have some more on that later.
So what's up in your neck of the woods, Kelsey?
Like Bill said, lots and lots of Batman reading, and I've been rewatching the animated series on Blu-ray, which I've only really seen the first season before, so I'm starting to get into the new episodes, which I'm very excited about because it's new Batman content for me, so it's pretty awesome. But gaming related, I think I mentioned last time I was looking forward to playing Little Hope with some friends. I caught up on Man of Medan. So we got together one night and did Little Hope, and we got about 75% the way through it, I think. And it was such a fun night. Because I don't know if you've played any of those games. I think Supermassive, I think, does them. The Dark Pictures anthology.
So I know Yahtzee Croshaw really panned them hard.
Oh, I don't know, but they have this fun mode. Like they're kind of like they're very story driven. It's all about decision making, like the old Telltale games or like Heavy Rain style, like that kind of game. But they're horror movie themed, so they're not high art. They're silly jump scares and gore and stuff like that. But they've got this multiplayer mode that is fantastic, where there's typically 4 to 5 characters that are controllable, and you can assign them to different players. So it'll say when Kelsey's turn comes up, he is always this person. And when your buddy shows up, he's always this person. And so all the people I'm playing with are big horror movie buffs. I like horror games. I don't particularly like horror movies though. So as soon as we start, they're all like, well, that's, Final Girl, and that's, the bitchy old lady. And so they kind of like stereotype them all into these things they know from horror movies, and they play
Like
them
they have the archetypes, yeah.
Yeah. So, and their rule is like kind of role play it. So if you want to be a specific type of character, like you go nuts, and it doesn't matter if that's going to end up in someone else's death or not. Like that's how you want to play it, and we'll see how it conflicts later on. So having a real fun time with that. And we were supposed to go and do it again the following Sunday, but then our COVID cases in my province started skyrocketing. So they did a lockdown a little tighter than we have in the past. So we had to postpone that. So I'm hoping maybe not tomorrow, but the next Sunday after that, I'm hoping we can get back together again and keep going and finish that off, because it was such a blast. Such a good time. It's like I'm not a big horror guy because I have a hard time with the supernatural kind of horror usually, and that's what the game is. But I'm just going with the flow and having fun. And there's like time travel and witches and like Silent Hill mist, and it's silly, but it's a lot of fun.
So, what kind of character have you chosen to play?
So we didn't assign characters; we decided randomly pick for us. So I am like the young girl who she's pretty stubborn and headstrong, so she doesn't really have any friends, but she's secretly dating like the handsome muscular dude around there. So we've got a side romance going on that nobody knows about yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And when we last played, we got separated, just the two of us. So it's really funny because one of my buddies is like, we're trying to hit on each other's characters while we're playing to build the romance.
If you have sex, you die. That's the way that's the rules.
I've been trying. I haven't had the opportunity yet.
You're dead. That's the way the rules work. I was going to say, too, I don't think when we did our last episode, I don't think your PlayStation showed up yet.
It didn't. I had some shipping issues. Finally got my PlayStation 5 since then. So I've been playing some SpiderMan Miles Morales with my boy and some Astro's Playroom with my girl, and love both of them so much. Have you had a chance to play Astro's Playroom yet?
I've not played it, but Maddie and Eden played it for a while, and they were getting a real kick out of it. They really enjoyed it.
You should try it. Like, it's not a time-consuming game. It's pretty short.
I watched them play. Yeah.
No, but you need to feel the controller while you play that one. You can't just watch them play it, because it is awesome. It's really, really great. Really good showcase for it. And I found this out after, so I went back and tested it, and it's fantastic. If you turn off the mic, it enhances all of the features that the controller can do. And that's for every game. Apparently, it as soon as you have the mic on, it sets all of the rumbles and the triggers to moderate. But if you turn it off, it boosts them. You can go into the settings and boost them too, but it still adjusts them if you have the mic on.
Is it because the mic will pick up on them if they're like that, or is it because of battery?
I think it's because the mic will pick up and interfere with some stuff.
I didn't even think about any of that. I just kind of assumed that the mic would be off unless you had a game that needed to use it. Because obviously, Demon Souls doesn't use a mic.
It autos it on. It's really weird. So that little button in the middle that's underneath the PlayStation button, that's on and off toggle for the mic.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Try it even with Demon Souls. It might make a difference there too. It
might. I mean, it's pretty traditional rumble, but like I said, it does use the speaker a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, Astro, beyond just being really fun, cute, the controller's really cool. There's all this amazing PlayStation history in it that's just super fun. There's levels based on each era. So there's the PlayStation 1 level and the PlayStation 2 level. You'll find little Easter eggs. There's a Jumping Flash and Bushido Blade in the PlayStation 1 area, and there's Shadow of the Colossus and Devil May Cry in the PS2 area, and there's Death Stranding stuff and God of War and Metal Gear Solid, and you name it. All over the place there's these little hidden moments that are just fantastic, and the whole time you're collecting PlayStation stuff from the past, memory cards and DualShock 2s and PlayStation Eye and the multi-tap and all this stuff. It's really neat.
My kids really enjoyed the monkey levels.
Yeah.
So those were kind of their favorite.
My daughter, because each different area has like a different transformation that like shows off something the controller can do. And there's one where you turn into a ball and you just like use the touchpad to like roll the ball around. That's my daughter's favorite one. Just rolling the ball into things.
Yeah, they've spent a lot of time playing that one. They really seem to enjoy it. But, it's got that Mario-esque feel to it.
It totally feels like a Nintendo game. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know who they farmed that out to, but they did it right.
I don't know the team's name, but they like playing Astrobot Rescue Mission on PSVR. It was a really impressive game as well, like super fun and charming, and made great use of the VR. Like they're really good at taking like the hardware and making it interesting and fun and showing you what it can do.
So I'm curious, you've got PlayStation VR. Have you hooked it up? Is it any different?
Well, I wasn't able to until like a day ago because it doesn't just plug in. You need to go to the Sony's website and put in your serial number, and then they send you an adapter.
Okay.
So I did that. My adapter just showed up. Haven't actually tested the VR yet. I just ordered Star Wars Squadrons on Black Friday, which is supposed to have a really, really cool VR mode. So as soon as that shows up, that's what I want to test out the VR with.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll be curious to hear about it. I still don't know if that's VR is for me, but I'd be interested to hear if it's any better. I
should know by next show. I should have a little taste of it at least.
You play any old PS4 games?
No, I also Black Friday'd myself a nice spanking new OLED. So when that shows up, I think I might throw in either Sekiro or Resident Evil 2 and see how the backwards compatibility is on those, because I've heard they both got a little bit of a boost.
I will tell you, you're really going to love that TV.
I'm very excited because it should show up any day now. And Cyberpunk's coming out pretty soon. I bought myself Terminator Dark Fate on 4K Blu-ray to watch on it right away too. So I'm pretty eager to see how it goes.
Yeah, OLED is amazingly fantastic.
So I've always been years and years and years behind on tech stuff like that. So it's the first time I'm actually like current.
That's exciting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was playing some Street Fighter V. That's the only like backwards compatible game I was playing some the other night. And unfortunately, I couldn't really notice much of a difference. I think it's strictly because it kind of has built-in like buffers between matches as part of just here's your characters and all of that stuff. So it's not any faster because I guess, that's just how it's built for that amount of time to show that stuff. So I wasn't able to really test that out, but I'm going to see if I can load up some other games. I've got a few other ones loaded, but I've been so stuck on Demon Souls that that's pretty much all I've been playing. I was really happy to find out, though, that my my Hori Fighting Commander PS4 pad works great with the PS5. No problem.
Awesome.
Plugged it in, works perfectly.
Cool. Very cool.
So it doesn't seem like there are any accessory problems.
We had the PlayStation downstairs for like probably 3 days before my wife noticed it and gave me quite the look. I didn't tell her the size or what it looked like or anything prior to getting it, so I think it was a little jarring when she finally figured out what that monolith was.
The thing is gigantic and butt ugly, isn't it?
I think it's beautiful, but it is gigantic.
Really?
Did you do what I did and put your first disc in upside down?
Yes.
It's so backwards, right?
Yeah, because I've got it standing up, right? Yeah. Like you're supposed to, I guess, because it's just too wide to put anywhere else. And yeah, I put it in, and I'm like, huh? And it spits it back out. You're like, wait, what? Yeah. And I still have to try to remember. Like,
yeah.
Now I have to like reach my hand around. It
hurts my brain. I know.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like Sony people. Like, I don't want to use the word fanboy, but it was fanboys making fun of the way the Xbox One put discs in the case, like they're on the other side, and like now Sony's like, okay, well we'll do our own weird flippy backwards thing.
The case thing though, owning a game store, that is a real jerk move because
Yeah.
when you get a big stack of games in for a whole bunch of systems and you're trying to open the cases really quick and make sure discs are in them, and then you're like, oh, this one doesn't have, oh no, you gotta turn over here. Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
It slows down the whole process. I hate
it. Reminds me, like, this is a habit I picked up when I worked at the video store years ago in high school, but like if I was counting, usually people aren't paying with like tons of cash, but like when you're counting out cash at the end of the night, I want all the bills facing the same way. So like the person I was counting with, they would be counting and they would flip and count, flip, 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 flip. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, I just want all the bills the same way. And it just kind of, I started doing that, and like it kind of like started me on this like, organizational journey.
That's why you got to move up here, and it's just color coded. You don't have to worry about looking for numbers. It's green, blue, purple. Fine.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So anything else happening in Canada?
Yeah, SpiderMan. I wanted to get back to you as well. Awesome, so good. It's really, really solid sequel. Played through it twice now. We got the platinum trophy just 2 days ago. So my son played through it the whole first time. I barely touched the controller, and then I New Game Plus. I did that whole like playthrough. So we both got a run through, and unbelievable. Like the story is really solid, and it's a lot less characters than the original one, because I don't know if you played the first Spider-Man game, but it's like, you're like, here's Electro now, here's Vulture, we need Doc Ock in there, and Black Cat's there, and Taskmaster and Tombstone. Like, they're just really like, here's a whole bunch of characters that they're really cool to see, and some of them are really fun, but that just makes the story really messy. So this one just had like just a few, kept it to like Prowler, Tinkerer, and like an evil corporation, Roxxon. Like, that was it. Oh, and Rhino was in it too for a bit.
I haven't heard a Green Goblin anywhere in there.
He hasn't been in either game, but he's been teased in both games. They're building to something in a third one with him for sure. Him, Venom, and the Lizard, they're like really leaning into now. So I think they're going to be part of the next Spider-Man game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I haven't played that one. I'm not big into those kind of games. I know you guys are really into like the Batman and the Spider-Man and all those things, but I've heard great things about it.
Yeah, really solid gameplay. The web swinging's great. The new abilities with the they call it Venom, which surprises me because there's a Spider-Man character that everybody loves called Venom, but his like electrical abilities, they call it Venom powers. So those are really fun. He's also got this like camouflage mode where he's basically invisible. So it makes the stealth sections a lot more fun than they were in the original Spider-Man. They were some of the harder like missions, and now that you can like, you have a meter you can build up and like sneak behind people and stuff, made it a lot fun, a little quicker. The boss battles were some of my favorite in this game compared to the last one for sure too. And the ending was phenomenal, really solid, and I can't wait to do. I hope the next game is like both Peter Parker and Miles Morales. I hope they don't like back and forth. Like, I really want both of them now because they're both fantastic Spider-Man.
Some Spider-Pig just thrown in there somewhere for fun.
I'll take it too. Like, he was a highlight of Into the Spider-Verse for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, kind of topic adjacent to Neo Geo is Ikari Warriors.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I got to put this out there. I've already talked to these guys. But I have completely platinumed Demon Souls, which means I've beaten the game 3 times over plus, faster than Kelsey's been able to beat Ikari Warriors on the NES, which is 4 stages, people.
It is only 4 stages.
That is how bad he is.
That's how bad I am.
That's how bad that game is.
I remember you talking the last time we were together just about how not fair it is. Like, it's not even that it's difficult. It's just brutally not fair.
It's just a mean game.
Yep.
So yesterday I had my first run that made it to stage 4, and it didn't just make it there. Like, I made it a really good way into the level up to the helicopter, and there's these like really glitchy, garbled pieces of like bad coding right around the helicopter that you can blow up as if they're structures. So when you blow up the glitches, sometimes they will drop items, and if they drop a fuel drop, usually when you get the helicopter, they're meant to be in places where there's no fuel, so you can drive them for like your 20 seconds and then done. That's it. So if you grab a fuel, it bumps it up to 100 seconds, which gives you enough time to get to spots that always spawn fuel. so you can helicopter through the rest of the stage if you get a lucky fuel drop. So I made it to the helicopter, and I was like, come on, like if I get fuel drop, like this is the run, like we're getting there. I didn't get the fuel drop, so I made it a little ways in with the helicopter, and then I got killed before I made it to the boss. But it was a really good feeling because I hadn't made it to that stage before, and I've been playing for weeks and weeks now. And then I had another chance at the end of my night before I went to bed to give it another shot, and I made it to stage 4 again, so 2 times in the same day. So I was super pumped about that. So I haven't had a chance to play today because I picked up an extra shift, but I'm hoping tomorrow or Monday, I'm hoping that this finally done, because it's been a while. And I'm a person who very much enjoys my routine, and I have destroyed my routine, altered it for this game. So typically I have like a self-imposed rule where 2 hours before I go to bed, no screens, and when I wake up, bare minimum an hour before I look at a screen. And my new routine is as soon as I wake up, the Switch is beside me. It's saved to stage 3 on the SNK 40th anniversary collection of Ikari Warriors. I play through stage 3 and 4 before I do anything else every single day. Just so I like those 2 levels are like improving on. So when I finally get to them, I can actually make my way through them. So I want to get off that again. So I'm hoping I can finish that game real soon.
Is that tune going to be burned into your brain for the rest of time?
Oh, it already is. Already.
Do you have to leave the game music on the entire time you're practicing, or is it like, is that something that you're
sound
adamant about?
effects are extremely important in that game. I need to know when things are shooting and exploding and stuff. So yeah, sound's always on.
And that does not have the best soundtrack.
It's not the worst soundtrack, but it's one song for the whole time. And like, it's not a short game for the style of game it is. Like doing a run through, like a no death run through, is like 50 minutes to an hour sometime, somewhere in that ballpark. So yeah, I died at like 45 minutes when I did that helicopter run. I was like, no, so close.
Yeah, that's painful.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you luck.
It feels very, very doable now. Like I feel so close. I feel like it's gonna happen. It was still very frustrating last time I talked to you, but it's feeling more doable now.
Well, I'm glad somebody has to do it, and it's not me.
Have to.
Well, on my end, I talked about the kids and everything. As I just mentioned, I've played a lot of Demon Souls. Been a lot of hours in that game. I got the platinum, went through, did the 3 runs in that. And I will tell you that going back and creating, I started a new character because I want to do it totally different. Because the last one was about, let's be optimized to beat the game fairly quickly and get everything that I need to get, and without being too painful way to do it. And now it's like, I want to try some different, ways to go through and play the game and kind of enjoy some of it, not have to worry about, I have to go get all of these things and do all of these things, and et cetera, et cetera. But I will tell you that once you've played a few cycles of New Game Plus, when you go back to the first, regular New Game cycle, it's like, this is a cakewalk. I mean, this is so easy to go through once you've gotten it, because it's like, I'm used to getting one-shotted by almost everything, and now, I mean, it's like I feel like I'm a walking tank. But which is fun. It's fine. I'm not complaining at all. You kind of forget, because as you're playing through each time, it's it's incremental, but when you go back, you're just like, whoa, it's such a beatdown.
Did you make it into that secret door I mentioned last time we talked?
No, but I saw that they figured it out. They figured out what it is in the secret door. So I could do it if I wanted to. I don't care, because the reward's kind of eh.
Oh, that's too bad. I thought maybe they'd tie a trophy to it and force you to do it.
No, there's they added a new armor set based off one of the bosses, and that's what it is. And you basically about have to, again, play through the game 3 times to get all these items, to get this key to unlock the door that gives you this armor, and it's like, eh.
That got figured out real quick. Holy.
Yeah, it kind of became a thing on the internet, where everybody was kind of crowdsourcing and working together. And what they figured it out was that in the game there's this fractured mode, which you may have heard about, which is it just flips the game horizontally. It's like 180-degree flip, like mirror image.
Okay.
For people that have played the game a lot, give you something a little new, right? It's not muscle memory anymore. And what they did is in that mode, in certain circumstances, they hid these coins, these ceramic coins, which are pretty useless on their own. I mean, they say that they'll give you health, but like they really, like 1 HP or something, they're worthless. And you can't give them to other people because if you drop them for another person, they literally break and you get a broken coin. So they, made sure that you had to do it on your own. And so they finally figured it out. You have to get 26 of these things, and then you do a trade, which is there's a crow. It's very standard Souls kind of thing, and then you can get the key that opens the door. So it's very interesting. The armor looks kind of cool, but no, it's not that cool. It's not. It's like one of those things. I guess you would do it just to brag or something, but
you need those skins. Show your status.
It's kind of one of those things where it's heavy armor anyway. I don't play with heavy armor, so I wouldn't care anyway. No fat rolling. You can't fat roll in a game. That sucks. You can't play it that way. At least I can't play it that way. So yeah, I'm, for anybody that's curious and playing, I've started up. I'm going for a Blue Blood sword build, which is a sword that is based on luck. And I always think that's fun because only Dark Souls 3 has done a weapon like that. Usually luck is just something for item drops and things. And it's cool to have a weapon completely tied to luck. It's very unique compared to the other stats that you're usually dealing with in the game. So if you're trying to min-max luck, which doesn't really help you a lot in a lot of other parts of the game, it kind of gives it a different spin. So, this time around, I'm really taking just minimum amounts of everything else, like magic and everything else. I could toss out like a couple spells before I rounded an MP, but not much. Whereas like in my other character, I tons of it. And so really this is more about melee. And, it's just, and grinding for certain drops, that'll help. But yeah, I've played today for probably a couple hours trying to get Mercury Stone chunks. And anyway, I won't go deep into it. The upgrade system, Bill can appreciate these. Like upgrade system for weapons and things, there's just 3 pieces. There's it depends on what it is. Usually there's like a shard, a chunk, and a pure stone. So, low to high. And drop rate should reflect that, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah.
Except I've got like a trillion. I mean, I'm not surprised. Like a trillion shards, right? Like you would expect that, right? These drop pretty plentifully. I've gotten as many pure stones as I have chunks. Chunks have not wanted to drop at all. And so I can have a trillion pure stones. It doesn't help me. I only need 1, but I need a bunch of chunks,
Just
and there's nothing to do about it.
Throw those pure stones on the ground and break them into chunks.
You wish you could. In Dark Souls, you can. You can feed them to Frampton. He can break them up.
Right. Yeah.
You can't do that in Demon Souls. So you're just stuck.
I only fed Framp all the dung that I had. I just thought it was funny. Every time I saw him, I'd give him a piece.
Yep. He's happy to eat it. Anyway, moving on from that, like I said, the kids played the playroom or whatever it's called, Astor's Playroom. I think it's that. And I played some Street Fighter. I felt pretty good. It's been quite a while since I played online. I played some ranked. I won more than I lost, which makes me feel good. Although, of course, I'm still bronze tier. So it's like I'm fighting nobodies. But.
Any practice before you go into, because if I'm doing ranked anything, even in Destiny, I'll jump into a couple of quick play matches just to brush the rust off.
Yeah, I did a couple casual matches beforehand just to okay, yep, I remember the moves. Mm-hmm. So yeah, played a little of that. That made me feel not terrible and not incredibly old. It's okay, I can still fight noobs sort of and win. So, but yeah, no, I mean that's kind of what's been going on with me. So now that we push past that, we kind of want to get to the main topic that we've been discussing or talking about getting to for a while, and that is the SNK Neo Geo system and kind of a little bit about that. So a little bit of background, and then we'll kind of talk, amongst ourselves a little bit about it. But First off, just some quick history. The Neo Geo system was introduced in 1990, early 1990 in Japan, and then later in the US and the UK and some other places. And initially designed kind of as arcade hardware, but also kind of one of those crazy, we'll build a home version of it as well, mostly because of the history of the time, and that Japan was coming off this crazy economic boom where like their economy was so crazy that they could afford to throw money at ridiculously priced consoles and crap that nobody should be able to buy, right? Just things that weren't normally possible. But their economy was off the charts at that point in time. Later on, kind of came back down to earth, but you could do that in Japan at that point in time. So they came out with the home version as well as the arcade version. So, which is really interesting with the idea with this kind of cross compatibility where you can have an arcade version of a game, a home version of the game. They can connect back and forth through memory cards, and the hardware itself is really built pretty much the same as well. So, I mean, obviously the early systems include a lot more of this than some of the later Neo Geo cabinets did. But I wanted to talk first about some of these pieces that made the original kind of hardware when we talk about it. So, Kelsey, I know you've got an MVS and an AES, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So does your MVS, is it one of the old ones that has memory cards and the headphone jack?
You got it.
Yeah.
Four slot.
Yeah. The original machines were built pretty much the same as the home machine, which is kind of weird to have memory cards in an arcade and then headphone jack.
One of my friend's kids drives me nuts because every time he comes over, he finds coins around our house and then he puts them in the memory card slot just far enough. I gotta like either tilt the machine back or grab a magnet or something because I can't get to that. Every time.
You need to put like some tape or something over them.
There's coin slots. Put them in the coin slots.
But I guess first off, talking about that idea of memory cards for arcade machine, which memory cards weren't a thing, right?
Not really.
Neo Geo invented the idea of memory cards.
I didn't ever thought about that. Is that true? Is that the first? There's like PC memory cards before that, right? Different.
I mean, I guess you could say floppy
Or am I
disks,
just thinking of like
but
RAM cards and stuff?
I don't know if I would count anything quite like that. Not like a solid state memory card.
That's just for your save data, yeah.
It really kind of introduced that idea. Now, I'll be honest, I never in my life saw anybody with a Neo Geo memory card.
Even now, like going online, like they're obscure, like they're not plentiful.
No, I want one, and they're not cheap, and you can't find them often, and you got to import them and everything else, and they hold nothing, basically, like next to nothing. There's an aftermarket reseller that makes like higher density versions, but you have to wait. Like, I'll make it might do like a batch a year or something. Right. So it's like good luck, and it's a hobbyist thing. But what do you guys think about that? The idea of memory cards and the idea of this travel from home to arcade.
I think the idea is really cool. I don't. This isn't exactly with the Neo Geo because I never had one at home. Never heard of the memory card. But I remember, and one of you can correct me because I'm sure I'll get it wrong. But wasn't it one of the Gauntlet arcade games had a slot that you could like transfer your save file? It was like Gauntlet Dark Legacy or Legends or something.
In Gauntlet Legends, it's not a slot; it's a code. So they give you
right. There was like a password.
Yeah.
There was some arcade game. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna put it in there. I would have looked it up before the show, but I didn't realize this was a thing that Neo Geo did. But there was some arcade machine had like an N64 like save slot, hardware slot on
it. Initial D, because it would print off like the driver's licenses, and then you could put your license in next time you came and continue.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to have to look it up. But I remember the first time I was in the arcade and I saw that, I was like, that's really cool. And then, like, a second later, I thought, that slot is going to be filled with chewing gum within, like, a week. So, like, one of those things that, like, is great in principle or theory, like, and it sounds great in a boardroom, And then as soon as the boardroom guys give the arcade operators this idea, the arcade operators are thinking, oh no, no, one more thing to fix.
I feel the same way as you. Like, it's a really interesting idea in theory, but like when you look at like the library of Neo Geo games, you don't need a memory card for any of them.
Yeah,
it's not like you're unlocking progress or keeping stats. Like,
there's a couple, but most of them's high scores. Yeah,
it's just it's high scores, and sure, like that's nice at the arcade, but there's always someone at the arcade who's gonna have a better high score.
Right, might be why they didn't sell very many of these.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing. You would see it, and on the thing, it shows like the slots and everything. Because if you look down it, did you ever? I would never even know how to buy a memory card. I mean,
well, I didn't even know how to buy a Neo Geo. Like, I never saw one in a store or
in a magazine
catalog I could order.
That's
like,
it.
I would see them advertise them, on like GamePro. Like, you could win a contest to win a Neo Geo, but you couldn't just like order a Neo Geo from them.
And I heard that there were some places that would rent them, but I never even saw that.
Yeah, like when you read about them now, you'd say like hotels and rental services, but I never came across any of those where I lived either.
No. Blockbuster rented some wacky stuff, like Virtual Boys and stuff, and 32Xs, but never saw a Neo Geo.
Yeah.
So real quick, just before we get too far, I just did a quick Google on the side. It is the NFL Blitz NBA Showtime dual cab, has a N64 memory card slot in it, and it's just for stats, because there's no progress in that game. Like, you start a game and then the game's over. So it's just if you want to keep your stats.
Where would you?
I mean, like we were saying, like Neo Geo.
No, like you're like the same N64 memory card that you
okay.
like the. Yeah, no, it wasn't like
control
a separate
pack,
thing.
Right?
Yeah, just it has a little slot and it says like controller pack on it. So you would like take your N64 memory card that I really didn't. I mean, I don't remember. I remember having one just because I was like, okay, like I'll get this. Like, maybe I'll need it. But I seem to remember not really needing it, because it wasn't like you couldn't save your games without it. It was just so you could like move your files around to like other people's houses, right?
It was usually for games that had character creations, like the wrestling games and stuff. Like, if you wanted to make your own wrestler, you had to have that controller pack in there.
Gotcha. Okay. So
yeah, because Midway games used it for saving and didn't allow it on the cart, right?
It could be because the with NBA Blitz and Showtime, those are Midway games.
I remember Midway games. You I think want to say like the Rush games and whatnot. You had to have controller packs.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's probably because they could cheap out on and not put it in the game, right?
I don't remember ever having a need for the memory card. And I think the first memory card I purchased was probably for the PlayStation. Because you had to have it, because you had Final Fantasy VII, and if you wanted to keep playing, then
I still have like my stack of like 7 like PS2 memory cards and like 3 PS1 memory cards, because to save everything, and I didn't want to delete anything, so I was like, buy a new card.
That's why I had a Dex drive for a little while, which for some of the younger listeners, this is before USB was a thing, so it was like a serial connected device that you would connect to your PC. It was really cool. It was like almost looked like a little doghouse, and it had like a little slot in the front, and you just stuck your PS1 or PS2 memory card in there, serialed it to the computer, and you could just drag your save files to it. So it was mainly used as a way to back up your save files so you didn't just lose it forever. But there, for a while, Interact, I believe, was the company that made it. For a while, they had like a pretty good forum going where people were sharing their save files, because since Sony never thought of this as a thing that people would be doing, there was no like save protection, and there's no profile on the system, right? Like, you don't log in as the Kel of Swell or like whatever. So like, if you have a save file, it's going to play on your system. So people were just like throwing up, oh, like here's a save file at, level 99, and here's one at level, this. So, and as the unit lost popularity, these things kind of went away, but it was a fun time to be on that obscure, save sharing site.
It's funny because I don't know if you guys remember, I had the version where it was a floppy disk drive that attached to the memory card. So you could back your saves up onto a floppy disk.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I still have like that and all these floppy disks. Yeah, so that way you could wipe it and start over and then start a new floppy disk.
Yeah,
janky.
Another one. Yeah, one of those ideas that's like before its time, and like by the time its time is here, there's no need for a memory card at all.
Well, it's funny. Like when PS3 came out, it was backwards compatible. I bought that
The save
the memory card
transfer
adapter.
thing. Yep.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yep.
I bought that and
Because you could use your PS1 and 2 saves on the 3, but like there was no slot on the 3, so you needed that thing to get them over. And it's just one of those rando like, oh, you like one of these official Sony things that like, what was it, like mail order? Like you had to like submit that.
I ordered it from GameStop.
Okay.
I had to order it into a GameStop.
Right, so you could get it places, but it wasn't like only through Sony. But yeah, that's the thing that like didn't see a whole lot of light, so you could find one.
Well, they cut the backwards compatibility stuff off pretty quick, but I was surprised it wasn't more popular for the PS1 stuff. But anyway, it seemed like everybody forgot that you could play PS1 games.
And I feel like one thing that people kind of forget about that PlayStation 3 era, and I've had conversations with people like just like up to like a year or so ago about this, is that people think that there are models of the PlayStation 3 that are not backwards compatible with PlayStation 1 games. And the piece that's so confusing is the PlayStation 2 backward compatibility. Yeah. So I was talking to a friend, and they have all these, PS1 games. And I'm like, yeah, but you can play those on your PS3. And they're like, no, I can't. I got the 20 gig. And I'm like, yeah, but you can play PS1 games on that. And they're like, no, only the 80 gig and only the Metal Gear Solid's last one. I'm like, it's okay. Just calm down. There's never been a PlayStation 3 that won't play a PS1 game. And kind of the look on their face is like, no, you have bad information. And then imagine their face, like you put a game in and like the splash screen comes up and they're like, I've wasted all of this time. Could have been playing PS1 games the whole time. And it's just one of those things that you always, want to work and expect to work. But there was such a fuss thrown up with backward compatibility on that system. And then there was the class action lawsuit with the Linux. And
I got my check eventually.
Yep. I think I bought like
$12 or something.
Yeah, I think I bought a cup of coffee.
It's like I think $12. I think.
Yeah.
I got. After like 10 years or something.
Lawyers, and what is it like in a class action? The lawyers get like half. So like imagine like how much money the lawyers just end up making off of the whole thing.
Millions and millions. Yeah. You get $12 or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Fun stuff.
But I mean, that's funny that we're talking about this because I mean, obviously, this legacy goes all the way back to Neo Geo. I mean, not that I'm saying they wouldn't have come up with the idea, but I mean, it was already there. It was baked in. They didn't have to look around. There's a save slot, which the only thing I would say that's a little different though about the home version versus the arcade is in the arcade version you got 2 slots for 2 players, right? And the home version there's just 1 memory card slot. So if you got a friend around, I guess screw them.
I think my 4 slot only has 1 memory card slot. I don't think it has 2.
Really?
Yeah.
You got a memory card?
I don't.
Am I misremembering? I thought that there were some that had 2.
I don't know if other models do. They very well could. I think mine only has the 1.
Oh, okay. Well, don't quote me 100%. I mean, I could be misremembering that, but I want to say there was. I could be wrong. But I mean, it's that idea though that you could somehow connect the home and the arcade experience together, which I think if the hardware hadn't been so crazy expensive, more people probably would have picked up on that.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And it would have done well. But that's kind of what we saw though is the MVS and the AES kind of. I mean, they both did really well, but the console sold fairly well in Japan. Of course, due to their crazy economy, but in the US, we were kind of in a recession at the time and coming out of some of that. And like we were saying, I literally never heard of anybody buying an AES. I never saw an AES. I never heard a story about somebody's cousin that had an AES. I mean,
I know it was like 80% Nintendo kids, like 15% Sega kids, the 5% like split between like PC and there's like the one TurboGrafx kid.
Right,
there was never a Neo Geo kid.
I was thinking that when you said like know someone who knows someone, I was thinking of the TurboGrafx kid because there was like one dude who had the friend whose cousin has a Turbo, and you're like, oh, we can finally play the Turbo. But yeah, same thing. Like there was a kid at the end of my street, Bobby Ward, good dude. We used to play street hockey, and like he was a big hockey family, and like that's probably where like a lot of my love of hockey came from. Like my dad watched hockey a little bit, but like this kid like lived hockey, so we would go over there and play NHL '94 on the Genesis and Sega CD, and we'd play in the basement, play out in the yard. But he was the kid who, like, his parents, I don't know what they did, but they had money, they got everything. So like day one Atari Jaguar, like day one Sega CD, like whenever a thing came out, we're going to Bobby's house because he definitely has it already, and zero Neo Geo over at that house. And it was one of those things, like, you heard a rumor, and the only other one he never had that we asked him, oh, Bobby, do you have a 3DO? He didn't have the 3DO either. Those were like the two rarest ones among like my circles of friends and people who my friends knew. It was Neo Geo by far was the hardest one to come across, and then 3DO was the second in my area.
I knew one dude that had a 3DO. That was it. Yep. And you went and played it, and you would tell him how cool it was, and then you would leave and you'd be like, that was not cool.
Yeah. I had one for a little while, not to get off topic, but I mean, I'm a big Sewer Shark fan. That game has always clicked with me. I loved it when it first came out on Sega CD. Just something about it I really, really like. So the version on 3DO is better just because the gameplay area is larger. But yeah, I can't think of a whole ton of other reasons. Oh, and then the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It's a really, really good version of that game. But yeah, there's not a ton else that comes straight to mind when I think of the 3DO.
Well, it's funny that you point that out, because several of the big games also besides that was Samurai Showdown was
Fighters,
big on Neo
yeah.
Geo, because it was basically an arcade perfect port minus load times, right? Which is funny, because again, you had to buy a $700 system to play a great port of a game on a $700 system.
and that's one of the biggest points that I wanted to get across with the Neo Geo is when you kind of grew up with like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, and even like when it got to N64, like it was always the thing at home couldn't do what the thing in the arcade could. It was not as good. It was less power, it was less expensive, but every review you ever read of like, a Street Fighter game or Mortal Kombat or anything that people would line up to play in an arcade, every review you ever read in like EGM or GamePro or whatever, it always would compare it to the arcade version. Like being called like an arcade perfect port, like that was as good as you could get. So like on the Sega CD version of Mortal Kombat, it's like, like where do I insert my coin? Like all of these little like, hyperbolic things that like all they wanted to get you to think is like this is as good as the arcade experience.
Yeah, and I don't think a console really marketed itself like that until the Dreamcast came out. Mm-hmm. Like since the Neo Geo.
Yeah.
So almost 10 years, where you just had no machines that could do that other than the Neo Geo.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was like, I remember, and like, because you would always ask your parent, like, can we go to the arcade? Like, it's the best place to play these games, right? So like, I get the thought behind it of like, hey, what if we could have this? Like, what if you could have like the arcade machine and just be able to like pop it? So, but it's weird because I wasn't in a place where I was purchasing things when this was in the market, right? So like I don't have that experience of the having the choice to buy this $800 machine in 1990 money,
Plus the software was like $200 pop.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
like,
so I can imagine this is like the adult indulgence machine because no parent is buying this. Right?
I was just gonna say that, like, even if they were at my local Zellers, like a big display, there's no way in hell I could have talked my dad into get that for me.
No,
same
no
here. No.
Yeah, so only if Dad really wanted it himself too. Like that's the only.
And they didn't have Tetris, so I was out of luck.
Yeah, think like I was old enough to where I started my first job, I think in 91 or 92.
Yeah.
I mean, so technically, I probably could have saved for one of these things, but I mean, even then, it was like, come on, man.
Yeah,
come on. I mean, I bought a Sega CD when it came out, and that was saving a lot of money for a video game thing.
That was the first thing where I was like old enough where I wanted a thing that we like walk by it and like I don't know if Caldor is regional, but it's like kind of like a department store that has an electronics section. So we'd be like shopping for school clothes or Trapper Keepers or whatever, and then we walk by electronics, like, oh, Mom, Sega CD. And I remember she saw the price tag and would just laugh, like, no. We just kept going. Played it at my cousin's house. But yeah, that was that was a like the first time that I remember like having any concept of like, oh, this stuff's really expensive.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So I mean, coming back to Neo Geo though, I mean, so obviously they had their dreams of being this standard, and it worked out fairly well, I guess, in Japan. I mean, again, if you're going to buy an AES, where are you going to get it? I mean, unless you're going to spend a nice chunk of change, you're probably going to buy a Japanese model because there's just not a lot of US models.
Yeah,
although they did
got
release
a US
games.
model. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you bought it a few years back from one local RF Gen guy, right?
Yeah, that's
not
right.
local, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Local
Smart move,
to
because
our
I'm
corner
sure
of the internet.
you probably got a very good deal compared to.
It was good, and like the guy that I bought it from, he was like cataloging systems, so he had a lot of obscure systems, but he would buy them like new in boxes, good condition as he could, because he just wanted to take photos of them, and like he didn't play them. So when I bought the system off him, I had the system that had just been opened and put back in the box, not played.
Man,
and the 6 games I bought with him all still had the sticker seals on them because he hadn't even opened them. So everything
is that Marriott guy?
Yeah.
This isn't. Oh, Marriott. Okay, I was gonna say because I saw a Kickstarter for a dude who like wanted to like make do this archiving for like, I can't remember if it was a book or if it was for like an actual like project or whatever, but he was asking for all this money to buy all these old systems like just to catalog like as much of it as he could, and the idea was when it was over he was either gonna like sell and do a thing or like donate it to like video game museums or something, but it just made me think of it when you said he was cataloging. But yeah, Marriott's good. I've done deals with him before.
Yeah.
And he had a reputation for having pristine stuff, and now I know why.
I really kicked myself for not buying that Famicom titler off of it.
Yeah, I got a CDX off him at the same time as well. It was at the time the biggest purchase I'd ever done.
Always, that was like the top thing on my want list forever, and then I finally just gave up on it. And it's I've never owned one. I've been in the presence of one a few times, but
I've got one. If you want to talk after this.
No, I can't. I gotta shake it. I got dentist money, and I got teeth coming out all over the place over here.
I had a friend that actually got.
Go talk to your mom. She'll pay you.
Oh, it all comes back.
I had a friend that actually bought a Sega CDX back when it was back when it was a thing, and we would all be like, "Oh my god!" He'd use it like to listen to music.
Portable player. Have it have it on like the belt, the belt.
Yeah, and he'd bring it over, so he could play Sega and whatever. Yeah,
I remember looking at the instructions for it, and it had like that adapter to put the 32X in it, so like it wouldn't like flop over. That would be.
You saw somebody actually made one of those, right? They made a 3D model.
The 3D, the 3D print's available. Yeah. So, but yeah, another time in another life.
But while we're talking about Sega and Super Nintendo, a lot of those Neo Geo games got ported down to those other systems because, obviously that's what we could afford. Yeah. And what's weird is that probably I think the system with what I would consider to be some of the best ports of Neo Geo games is probably the weakest of those, weakest in quotes, the PC Engine CD system. Some of the arcade card ports of some of those Neo Geo games are really good. And you're like, okay, they weren't that good on Super Nintendo and Sega. So, obviously the Sega CD, I think, had Samurai Showdown, I think came out on Sega CD, if I remember right.
I don't actually remember that one on
I don't really think any of the other ones did. I think that one came out on Sega CD, but I don't know if any other ones did. But that was the thing, right? Everybody still wanted to play these games. They still wanted to take these arcade games home and play them, but of course nobody could afford an AES in the US, although obviously there was a mail order system because they sold US versions of these games to whoever these rich people were that had them.
What stores they carried these?
I can't imagine a store. I don't know. I've not. I would imagine you'd had to have bought them from SNK,
direct from supplier. Yeah,
probably. it might have been like the Turbo situation where after a while, remember that company Turbo Technologies just bought all of that stock and said, "We're the only people now. Right. We're the distributors. You can mail in and get stuff from us." But can I go back again? Like the idea of a headphone jack on an arcade game. Like we're saying, like our music is so good, you're going to want to bring headphones and listen. Even though your buddy, I guess, can't listen.
Yeah, you don't want to hear that.
I mean, I guess the speakers. But
he's got his Sega CDX plugged in, anyways, listening to whatever was going on in the 90s. Nirvana.
Do you ever see anybody
Pumpkins,
actually
Soundgarden, or
just my reflection when the screen goes black.
Do you guys ever like see anybody ever use that headphone jack in an arcade?
Just my reflection when the screen goes black. Just me.
Yeah, personally, no. I can't think of any. I feel like, and again, like because I was young, I got born in '81, so like when arcades were a thing, I kind of was like barely aware of like fashion and what people were doing. But like now, you go to the gym and like the headphone is a fashion statement or like a status symbol, right? So like I don't remember if it was like that in the early 90s, if someone had like, you know, like a big pair of headphones or a headset, if like that was a thing that they were like, oh, I'm going to look cool when I go there. Because if it was like a status thing, I think you'd see more people, you know, potentially using that. But I don't remember anybody with headphones in the arcade.
I think the only time you'd see headphones usually would be when somebody had a Walkman. And they'd usually like those orange foamy things that came with the Walkman.
Yep.
And that was kind of it.
And I was going to say, I know this is a little bit later, but I remember seeing the headphone jack on the Genesis and thinking, why would I use the headphones on the Genesis? Like I'm playing on a television. And then I was like, me and like a buddy were up late. We're supposed to be in bed. We put a little splitter in there and we had headphones out. I was like, oh, okay, you know, I guess I can see how that would be a thing.
But that was it, like stereo. Again, like that was really new at the time. Oh, stereo sound.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before on, you know, off air and other conversations where if you're going to mod a Genesis for like RCA outs, like that's the one you want because you got your stereo sound. You just reroute it right from that guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So the AES does that as well, and. You know, it sounds great. You know, I plug my headphones in and I'll listen while I'm playing some AES. And it's kind of neat because I think it's one of those things like when stereo was new in games, they played a lot with it and they did a lot with stereo.
They would like phase it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Like, okay, let's show it off.
Right.
Later on, it was just kind of like, here's some music.
Right. Yeah. It's with any new feature, they're like, can you give us a demo? You know, can we have a motorcycle go from left to right and you actually hear it go from left to right? You know,
yeah,
or like when you went to shop for surround sound speakers and every speaking of Neo, and every place in the country is playing the Matrix scene, like the bullet time. Just to show, like, oh, look what happened. Listen to that sound. That'll be $4,000.
It's funny. I remember when I got my first surround sound set up and everything, and then I got a DVD player and I got Gladiator, right? And you did the one where demo. Like the Gladiator fight with
their
the
barbarian
guy,
horde,
like the tiger, and or like the battle scene at the very front with like all the catapults and everything.
Yep. So that was like I had these like crappy like plastic, you know, like $100 speaker set that I had from Costco, but I had like a really really good Yamaha receiver that we got from like not like a big box store. We went to like one of those like sound stores. It was really really good. That intro Gladiator scene with the catapults when they actually landed and the sub picked up, and my mom was like, "You have to turn that down right now." And the first barbarian fight scene with the horde, and then when they know who he is and he fights what's it, the guy with like the mask and the tiger, like you said.
Yep.
But like as a surround sound kind of early adopter, you start to find all those like demo scenes. Like Kelsey's gonna love this. One of the best surround sound demos, and you don't think it's gonna be a good surround sound demo, is the Achilles fight in Troy. Just like that one-on-one fight, and the thing is, because so many movies and games even, they just have tons of music going on. Just constantly like blaring. So like this fight has like no music. It's almost just like two pieces of wood just going like, like very, very, very little. So all you're hearing is like the sand and the feet and the clang and the shield and the grunting. Like it feels, and all the camera shots are like super close. It's just this visceral, like intense fight. And I remember like someone taking me into a surround sound room. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to show you this scene from Troy," and I'm like, "All right." I mean, it's a good movie. It's a good scene. I don't know if it's going to be a good sound demo. And oh man, it is a phenomenal sound demo.
I moved in with this guy right before I moved to the city I'm currently in, and he had like just when I moved in bought his like huge speakers, receiver, had it all set up, and he's like, "What are we gonna demo?" Like, it's like, "I don't know what to put in first." He's like, "Go look through my movie collection and pick something." So I'm looking, and I'm like, "Anything?" I'm like, "What if it's like, anything?" He's like, "Anything." And so I threw a disc in, and we ended up listening to the menu music on Napoleon Dynamite for like 30 minutes before we did anything else, and it was really awesome.
Was it the White Stripes song?
No, it's just like the pipe organ, like.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Like when they're just kind of like in between scenes or walking around. Yeah. That's a fun movie. But yeah,
because you're gonna have the OLED TV. That means you got to get a 7.1 surround setup soon.
That's my next step. We'll see.
I'm telling you, I love 7.1 surround. It's awesome. Put that up on your list.
We're at a time in our lives where I used to be real big into sound. I still have a really nice receiver, and I had Klipsch floor standing speakers. We had all this great stuff, and we just kind of hit a time in our lives where the way that our house is set up and the age of the people that are living in the house, it's like we're not going to be able to enjoy this for years. So it's either storage or sell it, because like it's. So we have not had the quality of sound that we used to have, so everything has kind of moved over to headphones. And the 7.1 headphones, like they do an admirable job. They try, as best they can. There's nothing like having that big surround sound experience. So if you're able to get it, take advantage of that for sure.
Definitely. You could probably spend as much as you spent on your TV and get a decent setup. I mean, nothing, not world class, but not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, so Neo Geo. So I want to, we've talked a lot about the hardware, and I want to mention like this whole idea that they kind of, because it got into these bit wars, right? Because everything was like 8-bit and 16-bit, and Neo Geo tried to sell itself as 24-bit, right? I don't know if anybody ever understood what the heck that meant. Did you guys ever understand what they were trying to say with 24-bit?
I actually forgot about the 24 until you had had it on the outline, and I saw that and I was like, "What is he talking about?" And I looked it up. Because I wasn't really being marketed to, because again, like I wasn't like buying this stuff. But when you said that, I looked it up and I saw a few places where some of the ads had that like marketing line in it, but I don't remember that being a thing.
I'm not a tech guy, so I just always assume bigger, better. What more confused me was the games themselves having like 48 megs, 200 megs, 300 megs, and I had no idea. Like
this game is so large that we need more megs to fit it. I remember like there was I would see that in EGM or like whatever magazine, like, "Oh, this is a 256 meg cart." Because like the old cart was not enough megs, but yeah, that was another piece of marketing, I guess, for us.
That was a big deal because I remember like Super Nintendo games and stuff and Genesis games would top out like at 24 megabit. That was kind of like the upper limit. Mm-hmm. But that would be like a dinky Neo Geo game, right? So you were talking about like 200 mega shock, but it wasn't even like megabits. No, mega shock. Yeah, I mean, because that's it. The control, the labeling would say like whatever, like 212, megabit or whatever, or meg. It would just say, but it was like Mega Shock was their marketing tag thing. But yeah, like this, they tried a lot of things. I have to give it to them. I mean, like you guys can't see it, but Kelsey's got the branding that happened with Neo Geo, the bigger, badder, better, which was
the dog
like
tag.
Yeah, that was like their later push. And I think that was around the era when they were pushing 24-bit. And you were like, what? I think it was, it was all marketing, obviously. It was a 16-bit machine. It just had a truckload of RAM, and then like the cartridges could hold disgusting amounts of ROM. Obviously, I mean, you see the cartridges. They've got two PCBs in them. There's two card edge connectors. They're nuts. They are arcade hardware. But it's funny that happened because right around that same time, like so many other arcade devs were going to that similar idea, which was very new in arcades, like Capcom.
Yes.
With CPS-1.
Yeah, the CPS system. Yep.
Right.
So
it's a Neo Geo. So,
and
Bill, can you think of there's some other ones?
So the idea behind that was it was a few things, because as a company that's trying to sell to arcade operators or amusement companies to buy their games and then rent them out, it's expensive to buy these enormous, arcade machines. Like every time you want a new game, you got to, buy a new arcade machine. So a lot of arcade companies would make a kit. So a kit was the board. It was usually the marquee. Sometimes it would come with like buttons and joysticks, but usually they were kind of like universal / interchangeable. So unless you bought the machine, you could just use whatever you had lying around as the operator. And sometimes they'd either come with like an overlay for the control panel or like stickers to kind of put like near the buttons for that. But the board itself, like the edge connector, they weren't standardized. So when a arcade operator would buy the kit, they would have to go to a machine, take the old game out, and be like, all right, what goes where? And like look at the pinout and be like, all right, so I need to, get these 3 connectors, go on this one to the and like it was a nightmare. So that's kind of where JAMA came from. One of the first standardizations, Japanese Arcade Machine Manufacturers Association, I think, or something close to that. And all that was the edge connector was universal. So like it's always, these top 4 are ground, and then player 1 up, down, left, right, button 1, 2, 3, 4, and then player 2, and so on and so forth, monitor, all that stuff. So that made it a little bit easier, but you still had to get in there, remove that edge connector, like unscrew the board, all 4, like, pull it out, install those little PCB feet on the new board, screw it back in. It was still like a manual process. So Capcom with the CPS system, CPS-1 was just motherboards, or just PCBs that were on top of each other. There was like kind of like a main bottom board, and then like there was a top board that went into it. But the CPS2 system was kind of where they kind of perfected it. You had your bottom board, which was your base board, your A board, and that was essentially like the console, like the think of that as like your Nintendo or your Neo Geo, your Genesis, whatever. And then like the second part of it, the top, had 4 or 6 little like socket connectors. They kind of look like IDE connectors, if you're familiar with the old hard drives. And you would just kind of like pop that guy off. Like sometimes there was a couple little locking clips that would kind of help stabilize it. But if you wanted to change a game similar to a console where you just pull the game out and pull a new one in, you could pop that B board off and then just pop another B board on there, flip the machine on, and it was good. So it was like as close to console as you could get. So that's where Capcom was going. And again, back to the original point of like trying to convince arcade operators to switch a game out is already a thing where they're like, oh, we don't want to, get our toolboxes out for half a day to switch a game out. So to sell this to, amusement operators, oh, I can just pop this thing out, pop a new one in. You got it. Give it to me. So I think that's something that Neo Geo like saw the trend going that way and wanted to go that way as well, and said, can we take it further, and can we have that same unit be in the home device? And it wasn't a bad idea. Just, happened the way it happened, and
it's very expensive.
Yeah, we got what we got.
So Kelsey, having the arcade set up, you've got the MVS, you've got the AES. I mean, tell me, you've had plenty of experience. How you feel swapping out carts in that thing?
Oh, easy peasy. Yeah, you just like open the coin latch, cart comes out, cart goes in, boot it back up. Yeah, like couldn't be easier.
So you're thinking, just like Bill's saying, if you were an arcade operator, and obviously you've had to deal with arcade machines plenty of times, that would have been a real big appeal to you.
Yeah, like the only other step is like you unlock the marquee, put the new artwork in for the new game. The end. Like, yeah, not messing around with tools other than the key you need to open the locks. Like that's literally all you need, and it takes like seconds, like not even minutes to do.
Which is where Neo Geo also went to say, okay, how do we separate these markets? Well, we'll make the cartridges incompatible with the UG system.
Yeah.
It's literally the same games. In the same things, just the carts are not compatible with each other.
Region locking your own software to your own hardware. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I guess the idea being I want to sell a lower cost cart to operators because I want to get them hooked on my system and, buying multiple, which at the home market, maybe I can't get people to buy tons of games. So I'm going to charge more for each game, but I'm going to give a premium packaging and everything else to go with it. So yeah, that's why obviously, it's a lot cheaper to buy MVS cards.
Yeah.
And there were a lot more of them made.
Yeah, even when you buy them complete, like you get that like cardboard box like with an end label on it and one little like slip with like instructions, and that's your MVS packaging. But your AES packaging, you get that real glossy shock box, opens up, you get a full color manual in there, and the box is like molded to fit the game in it too. Like they're really, really sharp looking things.
And the cartridges are ridiculous, like the size of your head. But, I mean, they're great.
Yeah, they're like 3 VHS tapes. Like, just
Yep.
crazy big.
And speaking of VHS tapes, though, the MVS games, to me, look like big VHS tapes.
Pretty similar, yeah.
I mean, just like the way they're... I mean, it's like no nonsense, right? It's like we slapped a crappy, like, laser-printed gray label on the end, and, like, even, like, the casing is like, yeah, I guess it works.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
they didn't seem standard either. Like some of them are kind of translucent and some of them are solid, and a little bit different colors of gray sometimes.
Yeah, and there's like I've seen like yellow. There's like some. I mean, those are probably rip-off carts. Right?
Yeah,
there's a lot of
the yellow ones are
rip-offs.
typically bootlegs or aftermarket.
Which,
Really?
not surprising. When you open a hardware standard like that, you're going to get bootlegs out of China and everything.
Well, yeah, it's what's interesting you say that, because with the CPS system, the colors were all official, but they were different regions. So like US was blue, and then I think Japan was green, and I think like the South Americas were yellow. But like you'll see these different colors, and it's like, oh well, that's just it's just the region indicator. But so you guys are saying that some of those off colors you see are just straight up bootleg.
Oh yeah. The Neo Geo market, both AES and MVS, is just, and it has been for a long time. Like how like Game Boy games are pretty, like there's a lot of fakes out there now. Mm-hmm. Like 10 years prior to that, like it was like AES bootlegs and MVS bootlegs everywhere. I think they were the first like really big gaming market to have a lot of piracy and counterfeits.
And you think it has something to do with the fact that there are so few out there to like validate them against? Like, oh, this is what a real one looks like. This is what a fake one looks like.
The arcade operators didn't care.
Yeah.
Does it play and is it cheap?
Okay. Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know the whole history of it, but the guy who bought the rights to distribute in North America, I think in US specifically in the late 90s, had a lot to do with pushing bootlegs and stuff too. If you've heard some stories over the years, have you heard them, Chris? Like, I can't even remember the guy's name now. It's been so long since I read them. But like he owned the Neo Geo distribution rights for the late 90s, and like he was bootlegging his own games like to some like some weird stuff. I got to look into it a little more so I don't like say a bunch of misinformation because it's been a while. But it was a really weird situation going on there.
And speaking of the system, longevity, right? So before we kind of start talking about the games that we like to kind of wrap this up, I mean, you have to think the last Neo Geo release was in 2004.
Yeah, 14-year run. That is
14
unheard of.
And I mean, okay, that's a 14-year run of making games. But I'll be honest, I still can walk into pizza places and see an MVS.
Yep.
Nice.
Out for sale. I mean, out for play. Mm. It's still got a bubble bobble sitting there. There's a Pizza Hut not too far from where I work, and there's a puzzle bobble sitting in it, and I think there's a metal slug in it.
I've said it before, but that's like mainly where I saw Neo Geos in my life, was at the Pizza Hut on Federal Road. Like I knew there was going to be a Neo Geo in there, and it just depended on, do they have a new game now, in there or not. And I always thought, The first few times I would go places and I would ask like, oh, like, when are you gonna get something new or something different? And the people working there, they're like, oh, like that's not ours. Like a company comes in and switches stuff out, and like, we have no idea what's going on with it. So, but yeah, it's and now, back when I was still involved with Retro World Expo, there's like a little warehouse that Chris is very familiar with, moving arcade machines in and out. And so in the off season when we're not, when we weren't running the show, we would just get together and be like, all right, let's grab some food, and then let's just turn all the arcade machines on and just play games for a while. And the Neo Geo, just something about the draw of it. Like, even though you have like, really stuff that are my favorites, like the Street Fighters and Mortal Kombats and Double Dragon and Ghosts and Goblins and just all these games that I've always loved. There's some like allure about that Neo Geo that like still just draws you over to it, even if it's just to play a game of baseball or just something quick on it.
They were never in arcades up here that I saw. Not that I went to a ton. I'm a little younger than you guys, so I missed like the really big heyday. But I never saw one until I was an adult.
Really?
There's just something about that chime. That da 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 da. I mean, you just hear it and you're like, okay, Neo Geo, right? I mean,
with that, just the spin it, dun dun dun. Well, because and you get used to, as you turn all the arcade machines on, you start to recognize some of the telltale signs of, like, a lot of them just have like an audio sound. So like when you turn on a whole bunch of machines at the same time, a lot of them just go dung. Like just this stupid, like, like just to make sure your speaker's working sound. And then you start to, and then depending on the attract mode settings, you'll start to hear like some of the ones you love, like like the Mortal Kombat, like the story music will start playing, like just some really good ones. And maybe you'll hear like a little bit of the Pac-Man over here. But yeah, you could, like, Neo Geo is one of those like splash intro chimes that you can call from like 6 rooms away. You're like, someone turn on a Neo Geo somewhere. Like, it's just got that quality to it where you hear it and that you know exactly what's going on.
And usually in my experience, MVSs are not set quiet. When they're around, they're loud to get your attention, and you'll hear that chime a lot, right? So on the attracts, coming through, But I kind of wanted to wrap up as we get towards the end here to talk about obviously some games, and we'll be here all night if we went through everything, but maybe we can call out a couple faves. So, Kelsey, I want to start with you. Can you give us maybe some of your favorite Neo Geo titles?
I actually don't know if I ever put on the show how I picked up my machine, and it goes along with one of my favorite titles. So I'm going to tie those together into a little story. I'll try and make it quick, though. So like I said, we never saw them growing up. So when I had my son, we started taking him to this little play place. Like, they had like the climbing contraptions, and you could buy pizza and stuff there and have birthday parties kind of things. And they had a small arcade in the back with like some skee ball and a few old arcade machines and stuff. And so they had a Neo Geo there with Metal Slug 3 in it. And so we take the kid while they're playing around in the thing. I'd go, pop in some quarters in the Metal Slug and play a little bit. And I kept asking them, like, do you guys ever sell these machines? I'm like, no. Like, we need them. We're not really getting new ones in anymore, so we can't afford to lose any. I'm like, okay, well, like, here's my number. Like, please call me if something happens. Never ever got a call. Place starts going out of business. They put it about, so I'm like, okay, here's my chance. Like, I'm like, here's my number again. Like, I want this machine. Like, let me talk to the boss. Like, whatever he wants. Like, I'll pay it. Nothing. My wife goes in after they've like stopped business to talk to someone, a canceled birthday or something. She went in there and she saw all the machines with like staff's name on them or people that were picking them up and stuff. So she snapped a picture of the one that she knew I wanted with the person's name and contact info. So we called them that night and I'm like, hey, like, I've been wanting this machine for a long time. Like, I see it's got your name on it. Like, what can I do to get it? And she's like, buying it for my brother. He really wants it. I've worked here for like 10 years and he's always talked to me about it. I'm like, darn it. Okay. I hope he enjoys it. And then nothing for like a month. And then it pops up on Kijiji, which is like Craigslist up here. And so I go to his house like the hour after I see that. And I'm like, I will pick that up. Like, what can I do? And he's like, I'm just moving. I don't really want it. My sister thought I would want this thing.
I was going to say, I better be the guy.
Yeah. And so I borrowed my dad's truck and hauled it home that night. But it was the first Neo Geo I ever played, and it was the one I played in the store. And Metal Slug 3 has always been my favorite Metal Slug, partly because of that, and partly because you can be a zombie who like vomits across the screen, which is fantastic.
That's a great story.
Very good. Very good. Well, Bill, you have a Neo Geo fave out there?
There's a couple. I don't have a story that good, but I think I've mentioned before that I didn't play a ton of SNK stuff just in general. Like never played a King of Fighter, never played a Showdown with Samurais. So like most of the time when I would hit the Neo Geo, it was just like picking up pizza, and it wasn't until like years later that I kind of like would explore like a little bit more of the back catalog. But one of the games that I really enjoyed, I didn't know was a Neo Geo or an SNK game. I had my Dreamcast. I was really into these 2D fighters, and so you get like your Street Fighters, and then there's Alpha 3, and there's a 3 Double Strike, and there's Street Fighter 3 Third Impact. And I was kind of poking around, and I was like, what other like good like 2D fighters are like? You walk into the store with just money burning a hole in your pocket because you don't have to pay rent when you're like younger. Like, what can I spend this money on? I like 2D fighters. So they asked me to take a chance on Last Blade 2. So
nice.
I took Last Blade home and played around with it a little bit, and I was like, this is really cool. And I was talking to some friends about it, and I was like, oh yeah, Last Blade for the Dreamcast. And they're like, do you mean the Neo Geo? I'm like, no, it's on the Dreamcast. And they're like, no, it's a Neo Geo game. I'm like, I promise you, it's on my Dreamcast. So, it wasn't like a long-lived, thing that I had with Last Blade 2, but it was just one of those things like, just give me a 2D fighter. I have Dreamcast. I like it a lot. Just give me something to play around with. So that's how I kind of ended up like messing around with Last Blade 2 a little bit. Never played Last Blade 1. And then the only other one that, two that deserve mention, anyone who knows me and who knows what I play on the NES, I'm a huge RBI baseball fan. I know there's debates on the quality of different baseball games on the NES, but I've always loved it. Like to me, like RBI baseball and Blades of Steel, like those are kind of like my go-to sports games on the NES, and I could play RBI at any time. So when I would go to pick up pizza or whatever, and the Neo Geo would be there, I would always like Baseball Stars would always like draw my attention in, and even though it's a great baseball game, yeah, it's so I think it was Stars 2 was the one that that I would see. So I didn't have like a memory card to save my stats or anything, so I can't tell you like what my ERA was or like batting averages or anything. But it was just a fun baseball game to like pop a couple quarters in and like play a couple innings, and when your pizza's ready, like you just pop out. So like it really fit that whole
a lot of their just sports games in general are like really fun, really good.
Yeah. So it's Baseball Stars I really loved. I haven't played any of the other sports ones, but I'd give them a try. It's you can't talk about Neo Geo without mentioning Metal Slug, and I'm pretty sure Metal Slug 2 was the one that was usually in our machine. But like over the years, like they've Metal Slug games have popped up. Like there's like the collection on there's SNK collections. There was one on Wii. There's been some on handheld, but I just remember like the intro scenes or like the first levels with like the camels. Just always makes me smile. Like it's just a lot of fun. And I remember when you're kind of like a little bit of a game snob, and you're kind of showing things to other people, and you would say, like, look at the animations. Like I remember showing people Metal Slug and being like, it's not just like like 3 steps, like back here, release. Like every single like little movement,
So
like
fluid,
the attention to detail and the like the hand drawn, however they do it, hand drawn animation sprites, however they get it on there, like you could tell that there's a lot of care put into that animation work, and that's what really comes through when I play those games. Is you can really tell all that attention. So love the Metal Slug as well.
Well, I'll mention a couple of mine, and I'll throw it back to Kelsey for some last picks and wrap up for this discussion. I won't spend forever because I know in the last few shows I've been talking Neo Geo games, so I don't need to rehash all that. But I will mention a few that really I've enjoyed a lot, and especially with this Puzzle Bobble. I mean,
It's hard not to like that game. It's so
yeah,
fun.
it's kind of one of those games where like when it was like everything's a fighter, right? There's 2D fighters everywhere, and that's like usually the Neo Geo would be loaded up, so it'd have like usually because the one I had locally, they would swap out games pretty often, but usually that's it. You would have like a sports title, so you'd either have like a bowling or a baseball stars or a Neo Turf Masters or something in there. You'd usually have a fighter, like whatever the popular fighter of the day was. You'd usually have a puzzler, usually Puzzle Bobble. It was pretty common to be stuck in there. And then usually like some whatever miscellaneous, like whatever the new thing they're trying to show off, or like a classic they had sitting around or whatever. So I got to play a lot of Puzzle Bobble, and it's funny, you know, it's one of those games that stuck with me, and I kept playing all the home versions that came out. But again, like when all the the guys are going to go out, we're going to play some Street Fighter, and we're going to just to sit down and chill out with some Puzzle Bobble for a little while was kind of nice, and it wasn't really hectic or strenuous. And I think it's funny because my wife Bobby, years ago, back when we were first getting phones and things, like phone games were, and she was playing these games. Like, what kind of games are you playing? It's like it's like Bubble Witch games, or I'm like, what? Like, that's like a Puzzle Bobble ripoff. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, that's a total puzzle. And so I bought a Puzzle Bobble game on the phone for her. So like, this is, the legit, because there's like a million knockoffs now that you can get and play, and there's crappy things that are begging you for money every 5 seconds. But they did make a legit version of Puzzle Bobble for the phone. But they later, like in the US, like it was Puzzle Bobble, and then they changed it to Bust a Move.
That's what
the worst covers imaginable.
So
eyeballs,
with the baby blowing a bubble.
Yeah, like looking at the screenshot, I was like, oh yeah, I don't remember this being called Puzzle Bobble. And then when you said Bust a Move, it's like, oh, I remember it being marketed as Bust a Move. So I probably saw it on the later end of the spectrum. But it's funny you said, because like it's like you see this and it's like there's been a billion ripoffs of this, especially in the mobile scene.
Oh, yeah. And
it also reminds me when like back in like the BlackBerry days, where like that was like a big thing. I had a girlfriend who was always playing this game called Brick Breaker. And I'm like, wait, I'm playing Brick Breaker. And then she would show it to me, and I'm like, that's Arkanoid. She's, no, it's Brick Breaker. Like, that's Arkanoid. So this is nothing new.
No, everything goes back. But,
Yep.
I mean, that was just kind of funny that it came back around, and it's become so popular that's ripped off like crazy to this day. And I'm sure they probably still make more Puzzle Bobble games. I don't know. I haven't looked recently, but it wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, they're great games. So why would you stop?
We're only going to get them now if the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia enjoys Puzzle Bobble.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of SNK.
And what about what's the other one? Wasn't Peggle kinda had like some gameplay elements
in that
from
realm, and Zuma, there's a whole bunch that were really popular.
Oh, Zuma, yeah. So you're doing the same thing. You're like shooting the ball out, and like so it's like a snake. And you're also trying to, like, my wife loves Zuma.
Variations of that same style.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Puyo Puyo and every other Match 3 game on the planet, right? It's just, that's it. Or Columns, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Whatever Crush saga of the day.
Yeah, no doubt. But the other one I wanted to bring up was, honestly, just talking about Samurai Showdown. Because... yes, we played a lot of SNK fighters, but usually that's the way they would rotate out. I mean, we would play like, okay, here's Fighters History. Like, that was one of the early ones that we were playing a lot. Like, okay, we play some Fighters History, but we'd always go back to Street Fighter. Oh, here's Art of Fighting. Okay, we play some Art of Fighting. Oh, that's cool. We go back to Street Fighter. Samurai Showdown was the first game I remember going like, I don't want to go back to Street Fighter. Right? This game is awesome, and the weapons and the clashing, and you can lose your sword if I hit the button fast enough, and now you don't have your weapon, and I can, you have to go back and get it. I don't know. I mean, there was just something about that game where they added just enough cool things, and it was the first weapon fighter that I can think of that would just had some neat elements that wasn't just, here's a guy with a sword, right? They really thought about it. And whoever thought up that weapon clash idea, we're just hammering those buttons, and even on the screen, right, it's showing you like the button, no, hammer the buttons, tense. And you're just like, and then somebody loses their sword or whatever, and then you're like, oh, I gotta get them, hurry before they get back to their weapon, and then you just have these crappy, like kicks and pokes and things. And then, of course, eventually, you had like the rage meter and on some of the later games and whatnot. But just the characters that they came up with, the move sets were familiar enough. They were, had always been smart enough to take a lot from Street Fighter. But a lot of that was SNK had hired a lot of the people away from Capcom that originally did those games. So it wasn't like we're just going to rip you off. It was a lot of those people came from Capcom to work at SNK and kind of kept that evolution of things going. And to me, Samurai Showdown was the first Street Fighter killer. And I think that's what everybody was looking for in the arcades at that point in time. At least until, Alpha came around. So Kelsey, I don't know if your house is safe, but it sounds like you got a little fun going on there.
It's going to explode behind me, yeah.
But parting thoughts, do you have any other games or franchise or anything that you wanted to talk about?
Well, when I got my 4th slot, it just had the Metal Slug 3 in it. So I was doing some research to figure out what I wanted to put in the other 3 slots. And so I needed a fighter. So I played a bunch of Samurai Showdown before and World Heroes, and I enjoy both of them. But I'd never played King of Fighters, and I'd always heard good things. So I wanted to find one, and I kind of narrowed it down to 97 and 98 being like the favorite in the affordable range on the MVS. So I ended up getting a really good deal on 97, and to this day, it's one of my favorite fighting games of all time. Like I really got hooked on it. I played it like every day at my store before we opened. Just do one round, 1 quarter, see how far I could get. I eventually had a run that beat it on 1 quarter, which I was super, super pumped on because that last boss was no joke in that game.
So who's the Polnick Dream Team?
On 97, it was start off with Mai, followed up by Andy, followed up with Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, not a crazy team, and I've experimented more with characters since then, but those 3 are my staples typically. I really like how Andy moves in particular. He's got that weird like spring off his hands across the screen feet first. That would be the least effective move in history, but it's super fun to do and it looks really neat.
Yeah.
I grabbed Neo Turf Masters, which you mentioned earlier, which is so good. Like I was saying about Bill, like the sports games are just phenomenal on that system, and I don't know how they made golf like that fun and especially against another person too. Like it's really tense co-op, but the 1-player mode's really fun too. Like you got to keep doing well enough or you just start losing credits and you just will have to throw another credit in to finish your round even. It was pretty intense. And a couple of years back, the Collectorcast guys did a little golf tournament in December. And
the Playcast guys.
Yeah, and Neo Turf Master was part of that, and I had a lot of fun with it. I ended up winning with our team and got a little trophy sent in the mail. So that game's got a special place in my heart. And then my last one, I wanted something really, really good head-to-head game. And through my research, I discovered Windjammers. And it's basically just Pong. Like you've got a person on both sides who can block this frisbee. If you get it past them, you get a point. But there's different characters with different special moves, different speeds, different throwing strengths. There's different courses that have obstacles in them and different size nets and things that make it really fun. Just one time out of the blue, I had another friend who I got really into it. I was trying to get this phrase going, like when you wanted to come to my store Game Quest, I said, let's go jam some wind. But it never caught on except for with this one friend who really liked the game too. And he brought in like 4 buddies like 2 hours before we opened one day, and he's like, we're setting up a tournament bracket, we're doing a Windjammers tournament. And so we had his tournament with like 3 people I'd never met before, a couple guys I kind of knew, and then one good buddy. And I ended up winning a Windjammers tournament that had no prize or no stakes, but it was super, super fun. So those are my MVS shout outs. And for AES, like I really like the side scrolling stuff. So Magician Lord is a really brutal game, but you get infinite continues. So it's kind of like Ghosts and Goblins. Like it's just super hard, super unforgiving, but it's short. The music's really good. It plays really well. It's got a cool theme. So I really like that game a lot. Crossed Swords is like a first person, like medieval combat kind of game. I've never been able to beat that one. it's really, really tough, but it's super fun, super satisfying. And you like a Space Harrier where like that everything's coming at you. Like the bosses kind of feel Space Harrier-ish. So you got to like.
Yeah, I remember playing that game. Yeah.
Yeah, super fun. And my son, the first game he ever beat in his entire life, 4 years old, was Ninja Combat on the AAS.
Ninja Combat.
I don't know how many people can say their first game they ever beat was on the AAS. Probably very few. So he's got that going for him. It's not a good game. It's probably the worst AAS game I own, but it's just a beat 'em up themed after ninjas.
There's a couple rough beat 'em ups on the Neo Geo, but also some classics. That's for sure.
For sure.
So, Ed, a quick question. So when you were going through your King of Fighters and doing your research to narrow down, you mentioned that it's those are the 97 and 98 were some of the best in the realm of affordability. Does that mean there's one that's regarded as the best, but if it's like money is no object?
2002 is a very sought after one, both for collecting and for playability. Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people. 98, 2002 are typically like the ones that like the hardcore fans like fight about which one's the best one. Mm-hmm. So if you want the best one for your money, it's no doubt 98. Like it's cheap, which means like under $100, or at least it was at the time. I don't know what it's going for these days. Whereas 2002, think of how expensive AES games were in the early 90s, and now think 12 years after production when nobody is buying these anymore, like how rare that game is. Like it's insane.
Yeah. Car Neo Geo game.
But there are other ways to play it if you want to play 2002 that are much more affordable. But yeah, if you want that AES or MVS card, it's going to cost you some bucks.
Are there now, Chris? You're the multi-card guru. Is there like the equivalent of an EverDrive type device that if you wanted to have that plugged directly into your legit hardware?
Yes, if I would have had some more dollars available to me, which I don't right now, I probably would have bought one because there was a Black Friday sale. Oh. But a company called Terra Onion out of Europe, they produce a lot of things, and one of the things they produce is something called the Neo SD, which is, as you can imagine, SD flash cart, and they also have something called the Neo SD Pro, which is a flash cart that also has like multiple slots. So that way, you don't have to reload every single time you want to play certain games. You can just save them into slots. The Neo SD, the regular one, was just on sale for like €250, and that was Black Friday, which normally I think it's like around €330. Don't ask how much the Pro is, because it's that bad. I think it's in the 600s.
Wow.
So yeah, and I don't think they had a sale on that one. I would be fine with the regular Neo SD. Right. Maybe if it hadn't, maybe if finances weren't what they were right this minute, I would have probably bid on that. But I'm sure they'll have other Black Friday deals at some point in time. So maybe at some point in time, or either that, or I'll sell some stuff, and I'll get one that way. But that's my route. I've said that before. I'll buy a couple affordable games, and then it's going to be a flash cart, because I just I can't afford to get deep into the AES market. Right. It's crazy kooky. So kind of wrapping things up. So first off, it's been a lot of fun talking about this. I know we've kind of wanted to talk Neo Geo for a while, so it's kind of nice to get this out there. And we'll have to cover some other crazy. I don't know how soon we're going to do a CDI episode, Kelsey.
Next week, right?
Yeah. Oh, we did it. You missed it. It was like a minute.
It'll be a short episode. Don't worry. No, but it's fun to talk about this hardware and some of the things that happened and some experiences that come along with that. But as we kind of start wrapping this up a little bit, Kelsey, I know that you had something special that you wanted to talk about before we do our final wrap up.
Yeah. So we are going to start launching a Patreon very, very soon, before the next episode. The goal of this Patreon is simply just to improve the quality of the show. So we have low expectations, but if anyone is willing to throw some money to help us out, it's going to go towards things like updating our hardware, like get some pop filters on here. If anyone needs a new microphone, we'd love to get the video going more often too. So if we can upgrade some video hardware, some lighting, things like that. That's the goal of the Patreon, is just to reinvest back into the show, make it a little better. So we're going to have some perks, things like access to Discord channel. Bill and me have talked about doing like a Batman kind of like book club, both with books and movies and TV and stuff like that, which I'm pretty excited about to do. Whether you want to be part of it or not, we'll probably start doing that soon anyway.
If I get to talk about a Superman every once in a while.
Batman and Superman team up all the time, for sure. For sure. So next week, or next episode, I will have all the details nailed down, but we should have that launched before the next episode airs, and I'm pretty excited. So please keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, I'd really at some point in time like to be able to do this show as we do it on Twitch. So there's some live interactions as well. So if you can help us move towards that goal, I'm like Kelsey, I'm not expecting crazy things, You got $1 or something you want to chip in. You got $5. You're going to astound me. You want to go beyond and above that? I mean, I love it, but obviously, we're going to keep doing the show, and it's not going to cost you a cent. But if you feel like you want to toss in, we would certainly appreciate that. And then you won't have to hear me reading ads again like I used to. So.
At least we had good sponsors.
We did. So, maybe if not, sponsors again. But anyway.
So I just wanted to thank Kelsey for really taking this kind of to the next level. Where we've been talking about doing this for a while, and Kelsey's kind of done a real good job putting it together, and the planning and the tiers, and we have lots of ideas, and it's just one of those things that we've mentioned that we've done some things before where we look with the video, like what Chris said, like we'd like to do more of these things. It's just going to take like a little bit more, effort and investment, which we're doing. And so, like I said, if there's $1, if there's $2, and I think Kelsey mentioned that it's going to be completely transparent. So like whatever money comes in, you'll see that money coming in, and then if we spend money on something, you'll see that as well. So we'll just kind of see where that goes.
Public and upfront, for sure.
Yeah, we'll tell you in the show. I mean,
and that, yeah.
So wrapping things up a little bit. First off, thanks everyone very much for listening. Let's talk a little bit about Kelsey. Anything new in the writing world?
Just waiting to see if I snag that code for Cyberpunk early or not. They opened up the requests, and I got contact with a couple of the PR people at CD Projekt Red. Ooh. So I get to do the review from our site for Cyberpunk. So I just don't know if I get to get a preview copy or if I have to wait for a retail copy. So I'm just fingers crossed seeing what happens there.
Awesome. And tell everybody again where they can find your reviews.
VGcharts.com.
Very good.
With a Z on the end because it's extreme.
Like the 90s.
Yes.
If people want to catch you on Twitter, where can they get you?
At Kelsey Polnick, where you can lately only hear me complain about Ikari Warriors. Hopefully I will have something new to post about within the next week.
There you go. Bill, how about you? Where can people find you?
Mainly on Twitter. Not complaining about Ikari Warriors as much.
Not using Twitter right there.
I know, right? It's they've warned me. They're like, listen, if you don't increase
if you type Ikari Warriors into the GIF search, there's only 2, and they're both the arcade version. Someone needs.
It's up to you to make them. It's up to you to make them and submit them, man.
It seems that way.
Yep. So, Bill McGee on Twitter, BILMCGEE, and so typically talking about beer, Destiny, dad stuff, but just stop by and say whatever.
As for me, I usually handle the show feed stuff, so at Collectorcast, I do post when we get new shows on Facebook, but I'll be honest, I'm not a real big Facebooker. But yeah, catch me on Twitter, say hi, and I want to give a quick shout out to our home base, rfgeneration.com. So, great website with all the great people, free tools to come and catalog your gaming collection, read some great articles by some fun people, participate in some forums if that's your thing and you want to get into it. We've also got a couple sister podcasts on the site. So there's the RF Generation Playcast. Those guys do a monthly game. You can go out there and join in and listen to those guys talk and interact with them through the month about what game they're playing. And if you're in the pew-pews, we also have the Shoot the Core cast. So you can listen to those guys. And if you're a high score master or if you're a total novice and you just want to get into playing, I will tell you, a lot of fun. Get yourself involved. They cover everything from, some very in-depth things to just some really goofy fun shooters from time to time. So it's not all just bullet hell or things that are going to drive you crazy. So yeah, give our other shows a listen. Stop by, check us out on rfgeneration.com, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks.